And we're live. Welcome everybody to the podcast Legend Killers. It is January 19th, 2020. Oh shoot, it's a new decade. Who knew? All right. So, I am here with my co-host joining me for the new decade. John, how you doing?
Doing fantastic.
Fandango-tastic?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm not gonna lie. What was the order we were gonna go in? Is it top to bottom or bottom to top?
Top to bottom.
Gotcha. All right. So then, all right. Let's talk about the top 10 matches of the decade, John. Um, so here's how we're gonna do it. We're gonna do this like always. Actually, it's top 15. I forgot. But okay. So I'm gonna start us off with number 15, and then you go with your number 15, and we'll go down the line. And we'll just give one reason.
We're going for the top, number one.
Oh, you want to go from number one?
That's what we said.
Oh, yeah. All right. Sorry about that. Then let's do number one. All right. Number one is okay. For me, it's Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25. Now, let's be honest. This was a hell of a match. It was probably the match that pioneered the whole kicking out of finishers, throwing every single arsenal you have at each other type match that you see in today's wrestling. And it was just a crazy match, you know. It's kind of what got me back into wrestling way back in 2009 because I wasn't like paying full attention to it until then. Until I saw it again and I was like, "Oh my god, that's a beauty of a match." All right. So, John, you're number one?
My number one is Daniel Bryan versus Cena at SummerSlam. I think it's 2013
Mm-hmm.
for the WWE Championship.
Hmm.
I was a big fan of Daniel Bryan, so was everybody, and everybody wanted to see the guy win. Now, the end wasn't so good with Randy Orton uh, beating him for the title, but it was pretty good though watching him win that title. Even though he held it for like 5 seconds, it was a damn good match.
Hmm. Yeah, that was one hell of a match. All right. So let's go on to number two. My number two is it was dubbed as Once in a Lifetime, and it's probably not a popular pick for top five of the decade, but or top, let alone even a top 15. But let's go ahead and go with it. It is The Rock versus John Cena at WrestleMania 28. I grew up a fan of both of these wrestlers, so when I sat there and I watched the entire build of this match. Okay, whatever your criteria is for a top 10 match list, whether it be the storytelling, the back and forths, whatever it is that you might look for in a match, even if it's just a fun match, I think this deserves a place at least on top 15. And I'm glad I put it on number two because when I look at the build that went up to this match, the thing was it was a beautiful build. It was great. It was real. It was, it was hard to really distinguish whether or not these two were, acting or they were like being for real mad at each other. And that was what I liked the most is how personal this rivalry got. Which was a little bit of an antithesis to their WrestleMania 29 match. Granted, I'll give them that. But for a year-long build, this was a hell of a good job. But let's get into the match itself. The match was great. It had people on their feet. Yeah, you can make a claim that The Rock was gassed, probably. If he was, I didn't really notice, but I know that a lot of people were saying that. But even if he was, like, man, The Rock did a great job for 9 years out of the wrestling business, and just what's it called? 9 years out of the business, and he managed to still pull out of a banger of a match. I'm very impressed with it. And of course, John Cena's body of work didn't help either, or doesn't hurt either, because John Cena can always put out a great match. So that was my top two. John, what's yours?
My top two was your number one, which was Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker. I, as a kid, wanted Shawn Michaels to beat The Undertaker, but of course he didn't. But it was a hell of a damn match. Um, I'm talking about the 25 one, not the retiring one.
Oh,
Um, but that one was super good. Um, I thought he was gonna do it, but of course he didn't. But that's okay because it was a hell of a match, and it's down in history, baby. It's one of the greatest, and I think it is. It deserves that spot in one of the greatest matches.
absolutely agreed. Honestly, like, you can't go wrong putting this list anywhere when it comes to a top 15 wrestlers match. All right, so let's go on to number three. My number three is John Cena versus AJ Styles at SummerSlam. This was the first of their trilogy, or this was actually the second of their trilogy. Now, when I was making this list, I knew I had to include John Cena and AJ Styles somewhere, and I really debated which match did I like the most, because I liked all three of the matches for different reasons. I loved the For number one, like, I thought the storytelling was great. That John Cena was this veteran who hasn't been in the ring for a while, and he was a little bit, and to kind of like sell being gassed a little bit, and then AJ Styles was kind of the newcomer holding the fort down and making everything, like, you know what I mean, just like showing John that stuff has changed. I like the storytelling in that. Here, or actually, let's get to skip ahead to number three really quickly. The thing I liked about that match, the Royal Rumble match, was that it was very technical. But both of those matches do not possess what the SummerSlam match had. And that was the storytelling, the back and forth. And this is what I look for in a match. This is what I love about a match, is when they have literally everything. You know what I mean? When there's literally, like, you can't complain about anything. It was unpredictable. It was back and forth. The transitions were smooth. Um, they the, everything. It was a work of art. I They had the crowd on their feet, and then seeing that finish where it looked like John Cena was about to win and hit AJ Styles with the attitude adjustment, and then AJ Styles countered with a Styles clash, and then hit a phenomenal forearm for good measure. Like, that was, I think that was a beautiful finish. And then seeing Cena kind of like tease the idea that, oh, he's no longer the face that runs the place, because that was his moniker at near the end. Like, that was amazing to me. And 2016 was definitely AJ Styles' year. I'll say that very much. Um, John, what was your number three?
It's funny because mine was the same exact thing. Or yours was the Royal Rumble one or the SummerSlam one?
Mine was a SummerSlam one.
Same with me. Number three, it's AJ Styles versus Cena. It was super good. I don't know who the hell AJ Styles was, but at the end of it, I didn't care who he was because I thought he was amazing. It was
Mm-hmm.
such a good match. If for people that didn't know who he was, definitely knew after that who he was.
Hmm.
It was just super. It was back and forth. It was. I didn't even know who was gonna win at the end of it because it was just so close. It was like too close to call. It was
Hmm.
just too good, and it was just. And it felt fast. It was super fast paced at the same time as it being technical. Technical. It was
Hmm.
just it was just like, because when it's a good match, you're fully invested in it, and that one I was just super invested in. No matter like if you like wrestling or not, you can't deny that it was a good match.
Hmm. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Like, it's just like a great match will always keep you invested no matter what. And that's what I loved about this one. All right, so my number four, and speaking about investment, and this is a testament to both performers who are severely underutilized in today. Even though that they're paired up, this was their very first match together, and this was his one of his opponent's debut, and it was on NXT Takeover Dallas. My number four is Shinsuke Nakamura versus Sami Zayn at NXT Takeover Dallas. Honestly, the one thing that I was, for those that weren't familiar with Shinsuke Nakamura, this is definitely the mystique. This is the match that gave Shinsuke Nakamura the mystique that he had before you know, he sadly turned heel and just didn't do much after that. He literally, look at this. The man came into a match. This was on the spot, mind you, because I remember Sami Zayn in an interview said that they didn't plan any of this out. And they had a banger of a match of the night. So I think for a fact, Shinsuke Nakamura versus Sami Zayn, that's one of the forgotten classics. That match, and probably a couple of others that I'm going to list here can be considered some forgotten classics. So I'm very proud to have that on my top four. Back to you, John.
So my number four is, even though it's a duplicate, is Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker, but the retirement match.
Gotcha. So
That one
WrestleMania
was
26?
yes, that was another amazing classic, and also very heartbreaking.
I love the pun.
The Heartbreak Kid broke my heart and retired. As much as I had so much hope from the last match that he would beat him, I had even more hope that he would beat him this time because he was putting his career on the line. And even though both men with the receding hairlines, they did a killer of a match.
Yeah.
And, was that the one where Shawn Michaels did the freaking, no wait, did like the moonsault that looked like he died? I'm trying to think.
Oh, the one where he landed on the table?
No, not that one. I'm
Oh.
trying to think. No, wait, never mind. I was thinking about the dive from freaking, but I think that was 25. With Undertaker, they dived into the cameraman.
Oh, yeah, that was 25.
That was 24. You look like he died during that one. That was so funny at the same time. It was awesome.
Honestly, like, I sat there and I saw that and I was like, it reminded, when I remember rewatching that match and it just brought me back to, I don't know if you saw this match, but Dolph Ziggler versus Rey Mysterio at SummerSlam.
Oh yeah.
They had a similar incident where, like, I think Rey Mysterio did a Hurricane Rana, and then and then they both knocked over the cameraman.
Oh my god, I thought someone broke their neck.
Oh
But
man.
it was an amazing match, and again, it was heartbreaking at the end.
Mm.
But definitely, it's talk about for a long time, and it's worth talking about. It's a
Mm.
good match, and they gave it literally everything. They gave everything.
Mm. And oh man, it sucks that John. I wish Sean was one of those performers that did come back out of retirement. I could have imagined like Shawn Michaels versus CM Punk, Shawn Michaels versus Daniel Bryan, and that was a hell of a match, hell of a retirement match too. So for my number five, it has to go to Undertaker versus Triple H at Hell in a Cell, WrestleMania 28. Everyone and their mother, back when I was growing up watching this match, and everyone I talked to watch about this match, they said that this was match of the night, beat John Cena versus The Rock. Now, my opinion will always stick to John Cena versus The Rock, but this will always have a solid number two, because I wasn't too like. I remember the build up, and I was watching it. I was just like, okay, well that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool to like kind of like go through this again and then see like, oh, end of an era, whatever that meant, because both men are still wrestling. But end of an era. Um, Shawn Michaels being the referee, and they threw every single smoke, fire, and brimstone. Um, they threw out every single theatric to get people's eyes on this match. And personally, for me, I wasn't too much like, okay, the build is amazing, but the match itself, all of those near falls, similar to Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker, it was just a hell of a match. Constant back and forths, near falls, everything you could probably like list out of a match. Like there is nothing in this match needed. Like it ended at the perfect time. Excuse me. It it ended at the perfect time. It made the most sense for for how the finish happened. I loved all the near falls, like the false finishes where we thought like, oh, this is gonna be it for sure. And when the match finally ended, I remember like being off the couch, just like, oh my god. Whew, I actually had to take a deep breath because of how good that match was. So that's definitely my number five. John?
My number five is a number five.
A
What do
number
you call it?
six, one with extra dip, and a large
Oh,
soda.
so my number five is The Rock versus CM Punk at what do you call it? The Royal Rumble.
Hmm.
I was excited because it's The Rock. He came back and he became the WWE champion once again.
Hmm.
And I was super stoked for the match. I know it pissed people off, some of them, because CM Punk lost his WWE championship. But it was The Rock. It's The Rock. What's so bad about him? He's the most electrifying man, and it was an electric night. Everybody was stoked at that point where he became the WWE championship, and it was a good match. That was the thing. It was a great match. They had really good matches, CM Punk and
Hmm.
The Rock. They
Yeah.
just worked well together, their style. And I know it's like, oh, Rock Bottom beat him, but who cares? It's like, it's just, you have to get into it. And
Yeah.
just having him, you know, and, and anyways, he lost to The Rock, one of the best ever.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's not like it hurt him because he lost to The Rock, one of the best wrestlers, I think, and one of the best, and probably the best talker,
Yeah.
you know.
And mhm. And like you
It
said,
was
it's
just too
The
good.
Rock. Like, imagine people like getting this mad over the Eric Rowan match. Oh, The Rock lost to, or Eric Rowan got buried by The Rock. Ugh. It was a hell of a match. I agree with you, man.
You can take it away.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I feel bad now.
Oh no, I was done. I was done.
Gotcha. All right, so my number six. This is a more recent one. This is NXT. This has to do with Tommaso Ciampa having his unsanctioned match with Johnny Gargano at NXT Takeover Philadelphia. guys, this is when I look back at the NXT matches. Um, if you didn't see any Sami Zayn versus Shinsuke Nakamura, do yourself a favor, watch that one. But as a solid number two, do yourself a favor and watch Johnny Gargano versus Tommaso Ciampa. That match was brutal as hell. It is quite honestly the best NXT match since Sami Zayn left. And I I don't know. I just don't have any more words for it. Like, you can't underestimate just how good this match was, because you sit there and you see like two people just slug it out and duke it out. That was it. That is easily it. I oh my god, I love this match because of like every single spot that was given in this match. I love the finish to it where they got rid of the ring mat, which reminds me more recently of the Jon Moxley Kenny Omega match where they did a similar spot. Um, and then they hated each other so bad to the point where Johnny Gargano was going to give him a slingshot spear through the ropes with his hands handcuffed. I don't even know how you did that. That was impressive to me. And then or no, sorry, Tommaso Ciampa was handcuffed and literally hooked on his with his handcuffs hooked. He managed to counter a slingshot spear into a DDT onto the hardwood of the ring, and then pinned him. It doesn't get any crazier than how this match went. It just, oh my god. Alrighty. John, what's your number 6?
Mine is it's a good match, but also it's mostly a feel-good moment.
Mm-hmm.
It is Daniel Bryan versus Batista versus Randy Orton at WrestleMania 30.
That
I
was a
think that was a good match. It
mm-hmm.
was a great match. I forgot. I think it's Randy Orton that looked like his like dislocated his back when he hit that freaking TV thing on the
Yeah.
announcer desk. You could tell it hurt him because he was like, ah! He immediately grabbed his back.
uh,
I was dying of laughter because it was
Fuck.
too funny. I think it was the RKO that made him do that too.
Oh
But it
my
was a good
god.
match.
That was a good one.
And it was, him, the underdog, fighting two people that worked together, sort of, because at the end they were kind of fighting each other anyways. It's because they had one thing on the line, the
Mm-hmm.
WWE Championship. And that made, that championship feel so, like, I guess, like, worthy. Like, it made it like $1 million. These guys, there were friends were even fighting it for it. Everybody wanted that championship.
Mm-hmm.
And Daniel Bryan ended up overcoming the odds and ended up, even from having a great match with Triple H before in the night, having even a better match later that night. It was just, and then of course, everybody's hero won. It was like a win-win-win. It was like, there was nothing bad to take from it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And like, when you consider the fact that this match almost didn't happen, it's like, man, I'm very happy it happened because I saw that match. I was like, oh my god, this is great. Like the arc, I'll always be a fan of like double team finishers. And when the guy did the when Batista and Randy did the Batista Bomb RKO special, I mean, I marked out for lack of a better word. Number 7 for me is Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, and Sasha Banks at WrestleMania 32. It's no secret that I'm a Becky Lynch fan. I don't think that I've made that personally emphasized enough. But it's also no secret that I'm a very big fan of watching Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch work together. And within their series of matches that they've had, I'll tell you something, John. I was so close between putting this match and their match on SmackDown back in 2017, and I was tied between those two matches because those two were definitely my favorite of these two. Um, but I'm gonna pick this match just a little bit, um, just over it. Only because of how invested I was in this match and how fun it was, and even though my favorite didn't win, I will say that like it was definitely like the match that just kept me a wrestling fan. This is the kind of match that keeps me a wrestling fan, even though I feel disappointed and like kind of like a little bit heartbroken. I'm still, you know what I mean. This made me invest in Becky Lynch all the more. So yeah, I'm good with that. So John, what's your number 7?
My number 7 is a women's match of Asuka versus Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania 32, no, 34,
34, yeah. I
34.
think. Now
Yeah.
I lost track.
It was a good. You got Asuka with that streak going of her just being undefeated. You have
Mhm.
Charlotte, like literally the top of the line women's wrestler at the time, which I think she still kind of is. But these two like worlds colliding and turn out to be like a fantastic, fast-paced match between the two, and like doing like things that you never see in women's wrestling, like a freaking Spanish fly. Like that was
Yeah.
honestly, it was just so cool. And then of course, people were mad. Oh, the streak ended. Well, it's New Orleans, okay? Get used to it. And then and and then it was good. It was a good match with a good ending. And it was just intense the whole way because you got that title on the line, you got the streak on the line, and it's just with that kind of like, I guess consequences on each side. It makes good wrestling.
Have you said your piece?
Yeah.
Gotcha. No. I have to agree, and funny enough that you mentioned that because as soon as you said Asuka versus Charlotte Flair, the first thing that came to mind was actually the Spanish Fly, and man, I have to agree with you. That was a funny match. Funny match. That was a good match. I love you for making that New Orleans joke, and yeah. All right, so my number 8, this is CM Punk versus Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam 2013. This is Brock Lesnar's match of the decade. This is literally the match to watch if you're a Brock Lesnar fan, if you're a CM Punk fan, any of the above. Even if you're a Paul Heyman fan, because when he got in there and he was being annoying too, and like, I loved it. I loved it. I think the one thing that I would have changed differently was just the outcome and have Brock Lesnar lose. But such is life. I still thought it was a great match. I loved watching Brock Lesnar and CM Punk go at it, and I have more than like. I wish to this day that they would have had a rematch. I wish to this day that they will still have a rematch. I still hope that CM Punk will one day return to the ring. Maybe it won't be recent, but
He's
who
gonna
knows?
win the Rumble.
Hey, anything's possible. People are expecting Edge to return. That's not gonna happen. But yeah, like honestly, CM Punk and Brock Lesnar, they had great chemistry, hella chemistry. Um, I I feel like they're tied for match of the night between this and John Cena versus Daniel Bryan. Um, I'm never, and it's funny because like of all my top tens that I've had, I've managed to have slipped this list on a couple times. Uh, so why not? I think it's only appropriate to have CM Punk versus Brock Lesnar on my top 10 for the decade, or top 15 for the decade. Alrighty. Over to you, John. What's your number 8? John?
Can you hear me? Hello? Okay. Hamburger, hamburger. I don't know what happened to you. Hello? Oh, you texted me so you could hear me. Hello? Are you okay?
Hello?
There you go. Yeah, what happened to you?
Sorry, I wasn't able to hear you at first, and then all of a sudden I was able to hear your voice, but then I realized you weren't able to hear me, so I don't know what was going on.
You heard me say hamburger.
Yeah, that's when I started to hear you.
Hamburger.
What was the last thing you said?
Oh, it was Triple H versus Undertaker in the Hell in the Cell at WrestleMania.
For number 8?
I think, yeah, I think 27?
28.
28. That was off.
It's okay.
Bro.
Hey, these decades are hard to like keep up with. Let me tell you something, bro. I'm not a bad guy. I'm not a bitter guy. I made The Rock, bro. I made Stone Cold Steve Austin, bro. Harlem Heat, they were mine, bro. I'm not a bitter guy. But Jim Cornette, bro.
Adonis, bro.
Kevin Adonis, bro. Kevin Owens, bro. He should be Kevin Adonis, bro. He should be the son of Adrian Adonis, bro. And Jim Cornette, bro, he's gone off the deep end, bro. He's making racist jokes, bro. He's making threats at me, bro. He's making threats online to some guy I've never even heard of, bro. I used to work for Ed Ferrara, bro. Alright.
Bro. It
Go
was a
for
good
it.
match.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Yeah.
intense. You got Shawn Michaels as the referee, and he super kicks him. Even that can't keep him down. It was too good. It was a good match. And then at the end, I don't know why they did say the end of the decade. It was kind of stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're a little bald, and yeah, they're a little slow now. And Triple H, he looks pretty good.
Honestly, Triple H, if anything, he's kind of he looks better, I think.
He's like the best shape of his life.
Yeah.
Undertaker is now an actual dead man.
That's true. Undertaker is an actual dead.
He's now living the gimmick. He looks like the gimmick now. He looks just like he's dead. It was a good match though. Going all out. It was brutal.
Yeah.
Sledgehammer.
The little sledgehammer, bro. It's crazy how much power that sledgehammer holds. Let's see. For my number 9, I got something outside of the WWE umbrella, and that is Kenny Omega versus Chris Jericho at Wrestle Kingdom. I stayed up till I think it was 1 o'clock. Excuse me. I stayed up until I think it was 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, something like that, just to watch this goddamn match. And I'm not disappointed by this match. It was amazing. It was one of those matches. Now, granted, they've had 1,000 matches together now, but none beat the original, in my opinion, because this was a match that you can't really you can't replicate. I loved how well they put over the V trigger. This was my first Kenny Omega match, I believe. I might have watched like one or two without really knowing too much about Kenny Omega, but this was definitely my very first Kenny Omega match, and watching Chris Jericho kind of get out of the WWE umbrella, it was very surreal. It was a very surreal thing to watch. And then when you factor that in with the fact that that they worked almost an entirely different style than what we're used to seeing from Jericho, it was a hell of a match. And Jericho looked really good in that match too. He hit a really nice lion tamer, and then his Walls of Jericho was even better. It was amazing.
Yeah, he looked like he was 42 in that match.
Yeah, and now he's. I think he's 50.
50. That's
yeah.
not bad.
Yeah. But yeah, man. And then to kind of see that where he is now, it's this was kind of a starting point for that if you really think about it. This was his starting point to really shift into his new character where he's Le Champion, or if that's a moniker he's going by. I haven't watched too much of AEW.
Man.
That's true, man.
Now, if he did the long words again, maybe it would be a little bit better. I still think the list Jericho is probably the best Jericho ever.
That's true.
Even though he lost all the time, he was still the best.
He was definitely the most entertaining.
He was the most entertaining man on Raw. The Jobber was the most entertaining man on Raw at the point.
Yeah.
He lost every week, but it doesn't matter.
I don't care. Hey, he became a United States champion, I'll have you know.
Yeah, and he did win it back successfully.
Yeah.
Too bad he wasn't treated as he is now. I think it would have been kind of funny. But then I don't think the list would have been as funny either.
That's true.
Him, because if he got beat by him, he wouldn't put him on the list. Unless he said, even though I still beat you, I'll put you on the list anyway.
That's true. And I love the part where there was one point where he was like, you know what? You didn't even deserve to be on the list. And then I think it was a New Day. They were like, no, I want to make the list. That was just.
You're so stupid. You don't even deserve to be on this list. And then he makes a new list.
Yeah, that was something else.
That was a peak of Raw for a moment.
That's true. That's true. It was really the peak of Raw. It was the most exciting part, and then you factor that in with the Festival of Friendship. It's damn, it's kind of sad to see that the Festival of Friendship happened, because imagine, I think they could have stretched that out for a little bit over a year, a little bit longer.
Well, I think Owens and Jericho could have ran Raw for a while.
Honestly.
They could have saved it. They could have been saviors of Raw. They should have called themselves that. Saviors of Raw. Here we are, the saviors of Raw. And they just interrupt people's segments. Just have their own segments.
Interrupt all their bad segments, oh my god! Like if let's say I don't even know who I would like list. Maybe like Eva Marie. I don't know. Oh my God! Who the hell cares? Stop having this awful match. Something like that.
That'd be amazing. You have mini segments between segments.
Yeah. That's
And then
true.
just literally piss off everybody. Well, they kind of already did. I don't think anybody liked them. They like each other. Everybody found Jericho annoying.
Yeah, that's true. Well, anyways, man, who's your number 9?
My number 9 is CM Punk versus Brock Lesnar. Hello?
Hello?
What happened? Did you drop the controller or something?
Yeah.
It's CM Punk versus Brock Lesnar.
Yes.
SummerSlam.
That's a good one.
It's just too good. It's a great match. You would think that these guys would have a good match, but surprisingly, Brock Lesnar works really well with smaller guys.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the bigger guys, it doesn't seem to work as much, which makes sense in a way. Like, but just him, you were just on your feet the entire time. It was such a good match. These close moments, just it was just good. It's all you have to say.
That's
it was
true.
Too good of a match.
Yeah, and honestly, like, you can't knock it. It's so good. Alright, now number 9 is similar to John's pick, one of John's picks, and it was a good match, but it was a better feel-good moment, and that one was for me, Christian versus Alberto Del Rio at Extreme Rules for the World Heavyweight title. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I love the match. It was good. It was great. But the thing I wanted to talk about the most from this match was the outcome. And that was good old Christian finally winning a world title in WWE. And I'm going to be honest, it was kind of hard because I knew Christian had to be on this list somewhere. Especially if I'm pulling for the guy to be in the Hall of Fame.
Christian Alcantara for class of 2020.
Okay, don't ruin it, John.
You were like, who the hell is that?
Right? No one's gonna know. What's it called? But, yeah, okay, so when you look at Christian's body of work, the man's had great matches. He's had for me, I was stuck between this match and his match for Randy Orton on SmackDown, and I have a reason for that, but I'll get to that. I'll get to that in a later podcast, maybe, as to why, as much as I hated that match, the outcome of that match, why I would pick that on such a list. But
Randy Orton where Christian got kicked in the nuts. And he won the world title because of a nut shot.
Oh, that was also pretty good. Nakamura would be jealous. Well, Nakamura and Daniel Bryan, that is. Well, anyway.
Nakamura didn't even win the title with the nut shot.
That's why I'm saying he would be jealous.
Like, that makes no sense. Randy Orton kicked him in the nuts and he lost. Shinsuke just lost and then kicked him in the nuts. And then Daniel Bryan kicked someone in the nuts and won the title.
You know what, man? Just let me enjoy my joke.
They're all 3 different categories. Randy Orton should be jealous of Daniel Bryan because he won his match with kicking someone in the nuts.
Fine. Then Randy Orton would be jealous, I guess. I give
Yeah,
up.
he wins a toothbrush. I don't know what that means, but I just wanted to say that.
Fair enough. You got no reaction from it either.
Thank you, crowd. Thank you very much.
Okay, so going back to this match, it was a great match, and I think that honestly, like I'll never not enjoy rewatching this match. This is one of those matches where I'll never get tired of. This is one of those matches I'll never get tired of watching, no matter how many times it's played on my TV. Christian and Alberto Del Rio. Back to you, John. Hello?
Yeah. What was the question? This is for Daniel Staniak. Wait, what are we talking about? Oh, we're talking about... What number are we on? 10? I guess 10. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, dude.
Were you able to hear me at all?
Yeah, but, you like, died all of a sudden.
Okay, sorry. It's this
What
damn
number?
headset.
10?
I'm struggling to get this thing figured out. Okay, yeah, number 10 is where we're at.
Surprisingly, you didn't put this one on the list, but it was a good match. It was The Miz versus Seth Rollins in a Backlash.
Ooh.
One of the worst pay-per-views in the world, but it had one goddamn good match for some reason.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't really remember that match.
Because I think it was the opener.
Oh.
It was just like it literally skyrocketed the what do you call it?
The
Expectations for the pay-per-view, and they were let down. But that doesn't take away from the match. Now,
which pay-per-view was this? Which year was this?
2018.
Oh.
It was right after WrestleMania 34.
Oh, was this the one with Daniel Bryan and Big Cass?
I think so.
Oh.
Yeah. But
Gotcha.
Seth Rollins and Seth Rollins was trying to retain it. Miz was trying to win back the Intercontinental Championship, and they actually pulled off a fantastic match. It was super good, and you would never think that these two would have it. Now, it was actually not a bad lead up. Miz, the IC championship was his, and I say it's his because he won the damn thing so many times now. And he wanted it back, and he lost to one of the people he hates the most, Seth Rollins. And Seth Rollins was this goody two-shoes guy that beat him for it, and now is a man that defends it all the time. And I think it was just a good match. It had several where Miz countered stuff. He was all by himself countering, doing skull crushes finales, even though that finisher never works. I think maybe after the third time it'll probably hit him. And Seth Rollins still kicked out, and even I think Miz even kicked out at a couple things, and it showed I guess true dedication, for the Miz. It was a next chapter for him, where he wasn't just this scaredy cat guy. He was starting to become an actual I'm gonna actually win this time kind of wrestler, and it actually led up to him to being more of a. I think now he's a heel again, but he was becoming a pretty good face, where he was actually fighting for once, and I think it was just a really good match.
Hmm.
is underrated.
Yeah, that's true. And um, now I'm gonna definitely go back and watch that match because I do vaguely remember some bits and pieces of that, but I do remember it being a good match. And I do remember that pay per view being really bad. So, all right, thank you for the recommendation. Um, all right, so going on, I have a match from good old AEW. This is number 11, and I had previously referenced it. And funny enough that I'd referenced it talking about an unsanctioned match. So from one unsanctioned match to another, I'm going with Kenny Omega versus Jon Moxley at AEW. What can I say about this match? This was brutal as hell. It was grueling to watch. I sat there and I'm watching this match. I'm like, what more can these guys put these through? At one point, they broke glass and shredded it on the floor, and then they had a spot where both of these men landed. Now, here was kind of a spot that I thought was particularly dumb because they had Jon Moxley, they had Kenny Omega put Jon Moxley in a sharpshooter, and then Jon Moxley had to crawl through the glass and reach for the ropes. Now, that spot was pretty grueling enough to watch, but I thought it was really dumb to follow up with that for Jon Moxley to get the ropes and then for commentary to say, oh, rope breaks don't work. I sat there and I listened to this. I was like, what the hell? Why would you have such a spot then if why would you be dumb enough? Like, think of this in character. Like, if you don't have to do it, why would you do it? You don't have to hurt yourself. Why would you expend the energy to pardon me. Why would you expend the energy to put your whole rib cage through glass and then only to be exposed as it wasn't necessary in the first place? I would feel pretty dumb if I were Jon Moxley. But anyway, that doesn't really take away. Well, it does take away a little bit from the match because for me it just seemed like it threw off the realism just a little bit. It threw off my suspension of disbelief, but it was made up for afterwards because, well, the rest of the match was amazing. And then once I saw how it ended with Kenny Omega taking the paradigm shift onto the hardwood, and then Jon Moxley winning. So I'll say it was a damn good match still, regardless of that spot. And definitely deserves to be on top 15. John, back to you. What's your number 11?
For number 11, I believe it is another Brock Lesnar match. And, well, actually, now it's like 3 years old. But AJ Styles versus Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series.
Ooh,
I
that's
think it was
a good
a
one.
good match where, for a while, I freaking believed that AJ was gonna win. It was a good lead up where AJ, first it was gonna be a horrible match, Jinder Mahal versus Brock Lesnar, and then because Jinder Mahal called him out and he was accepted, but then AJ Styles dethroned him, and AJ Styles says, "I'm still gonna take that damn challenge because I'm freaking AJ Styles," and like SmackDown had like fully like endorsed him and everything, and like everybody had his back, and it was like leading up where he wasn't scared of Brock Lesnar, and he's taking people on like him, and he's not afraid, and even Brock or Paul Heyman saying like, AJ Styles is pretty good, and but he's gonna come out on top, and first, they make you think that AJ is gonna lose right away with getting suplexed about 5,000 times. But you know, AJ Styles started picking at him slowly, and started to get his legs and stuff, and it just turned out to be like a super good match. Especially with him doing the where he like I don't even know what he did. I think Brock Lesnar tried to do something to him, and he just like turned it around into a like calf crusher, um, and people were like everybody was going tap tap tap, and it was Brock Lesnar was actually doing a really good he was really selling it, and it just I thought like maybe for had a little bit hope that he was gonna tap out to
Yeah.
and it was just it was not one-sided. It was back and forth. Both getting great offense on each other, and it really made AJ Styles, even though he lost in the end, it made him look like a champion because he, for the first time went one-on-one with him and almost beat him, while others get smashed by him all the time.
Yeah. That's true. That honestly, that was and I agree with you that that was one hell of a match, back and forth. That I'll never I'm never gonna forget that match either. Especially the spot where I thought it was for sure gonna be AJ Styles winning, and he was gonna hit Brock Lesnar with the phenomenal forearm, and then that was countered into the F5. I was like, oh my god! I was worked as a wrestling fan, and I was like, how did I not see that coming? That's how invested I was in this match and how good this match was.
Now, I would have one thing is if AJ Styles kicked out of one F5. Now,
yes.
If he kicked out of one, it would have been amazing. I don't care if he would have lost and took another one and lost, but if he would have took one and kicked out, it would have been amazing.
Yeah.
People would have probably went insane in the stadium. Just, that he just freaking, he just kicked out of an F5 and Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman just having that expression of like, what just happened? And I think that would have been, really good. It wouldn't have hurt Brock Lesnar whatsoever, and it would have just made AJ Styles look like a freaking badass of a man. Just to take, even if he would have been just freaking dead after, just to take one and just, kick out right before 3 would have been pretty good. It would have been pretty cool. I think that was the only thing I would have changed.
That's true. Yeah, and I agree. That was I would have had that change too. Because honestly, like you can't tell me, no matter who you are as a wrestling fan, you can't tell me that wouldn't excite you. And yeah, that was just one of the best. That was just one of the best matches. And you know what's funny? And this just gave me an idea for our next podcast, but I'll talk to you about that after the match. After this podcast.
We're having a match?
Yeah, we're having a match, man.
A talking match.
Who can talk the most? That's the goal. Or who can talk the least? I don't know. But, okay, sorry. So after the podcast, I got an idea for our next podcast. But it seemed like there was a rematch being teased between these two. Because after the match, you hear AJ Styles you hear Paul Heyman sing AJ Styles praises, and then the following SmackDown, you see AJ Styles cut a promo on Brock Lesnar, and he said this, and I quote, I was compared to Rocky during this match, and I'm just kind of paraphrasing here. But in Rocky loses on the first one. But in Rocky 2, Rocky wins. And that to me says to me that they are supposed to eventually have a rematch. And I hope that they do. I hope to see them have a rematch maybe in the year 2020. I don't know. But I think we should have it as fans to be that excited again. Make up for what we didn't get with CM Punk and give us a rematch between AJ Styles and Brock Lesnar. That is all. Now, for my number 12, I have Shinsuke Nakamura versus AJ Styles at Wrestle Kingdom 9. This was their very first match together. This was kind of the match that got me impressed by Shinsuke Nakamura. And I'm going to be honest, I wasn't as big a Shinsuke fan because this was kind of like, this was just getting my feet wet with Shinsuke. And I saw it, I thought, okay, it was a hell of a match. I like the back and forth. There was one point where we saw the Styles Clash introduced. Back when the Calf Crusher was the Calf Killer. I don't think AJ Styles had the phenomenal forearm at the time. What's it called? Although because that finisher is kind of a product of WWE establishing it as a finisher. AJ Styles did a hell of a. AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura had hell of a chemistry here, and it makes me wonder why they didn't have this match in WWE. Why did they have a completely different match in WWE? That will always be beyond me. And not to say that that I didn't like WrestleMania, their WrestleMania match, but this was by far the superior match. And it's just filled with highlights that you'll just never forget this match. And this was what a excuse me. This is what a wrestling match should be. A freaking clinic. John, what's your number 12?
My number 12 was a great match. It was mostly a feel-good moment. It was happened last year with that Kofi Kingston versus Daniel Bryan.
Yes.
And it was in a match that no one thought it would ever happen. It was something that no one thought was going to happen with, Kofi Kingston coming out on top and winning the WWE champion. Now his reign wasn't amazing after he won, but it might be pissing off some people. But,
a lot of Kofi fans.
Yeah.
Well, then again,
it wasn't so amazing, and how it ended wasn't so amazing.
Yeah.
But the lead up was super. It reminds you why wrestling's awesome.
Yeah.
If they do it right, and they did it right. They knew what the crowd wanted. They felt the crowd, and they used it to make something great.
Yeah.
And Kofi is a great wrestler. Daniel Bryan, of course, is a fantastic wrestler. And of course, their styles collided. And with, Daniel Bryan more of this, technical wrestler now. Coming back, he's more technical than anything now. Than high flying and everything. Mostly because it's probably his freaking neck and stuff. But it worked perfectly, and it was a feel-good moment, and it was this guy that was bashing him, and he overcame it. It was good.
Yeah, and seeing everything, I remember seeing that with my girlfriend, and she was like, "Oh my God, that was a great match." I saw this and I was like, that was a great match. And then seeing Xavier Woods cry and other people in the crowd cry, that was just a feel-good moment. You're never gonna take that away from anybody, what they felt that night. So I was definitely grateful to see that match too. And like John said, to add it to his point, it was something nobody had ever expected. Because, and I think it was also because, it wasn't part of the plan either. Because I believe the original plan was for Ali to face Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so.
Oh yeah. All right. So my number 13 is the 2014 Elimination Chamber match for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship match, and the contestants in this match were John Cena, Randy Orton, Daniel Bryan, Cesaro. Okay, hold on. Sorry. Randy Orton, John Cena, Daniel Bryan, Cesaro, Christian, who was my favorite, and then oh yeah, that's right, Sheamus. I was wondering how okay, now far be it from me to add multi-man matches, typically, because I'm more of a singles match kind of guy when I really look at like the best matches of the decade. But this was a damn good match too, that if you haven't seen, go ahead and see, because it came close a couple times. But for me, the MVP in the match was Christian. He played his role the best, in my opinion. Of course, the Daniel Bryan fans will always love what Daniel Bryan did in that match, where he became so close to winning the WWE Championship. That will always be that will always be pretty cool to kind of like remember. One thing that I remember from the match was that John Cena and Christian had a little back and forth, and then Christian finally got one up on Sheamus, because at the time Sheamus was always unbeatable and beating every single heel possible, and then finally the moment a heel got up on Sheamus and it was Christian, I was pretty happy with that. What's it called? Yeah, it was a great match. Loved it. Cesaro shined in there as well. Everyone did a great job in that match. So, yep, that's definitely my number 12, or sorry, number 13. John, back to you.
Mine is a Money in the Bank match of 2013, I believe. It had Rob Van Dam. I think it had Christian in it. It had freaking oh my god.
Rob Van Dam, Christian.
Yeah, Randy Orton, I believe. It had Sheamus in it. It had Daniel Bryan, CM Punk. It had all these like big names in it.
Yep.
That it ended up like turning into like an amazing match. It was just, but you're having all these great wrestlers come in to do, to do one of like most exciting matches is a ladder match, and having them all together worked out so well together with Christian and CM Punk and the return of RVD. It was just, people were stoked for that match. It had everybody that, it had everybody you wanted.
Yep.
It had Daniel Bryan and freaking, there was no one to dislike in the match, and it definitely did not disappoint.
Yeah. Honestly, that was a hell of a match too. I remember pulling for RVD in that match like crazy. I was like, oh my god, he better win. He's got to win. He needs to win. I remember that.
Yeah, that would have been amazing. That would have been a definite comeback.
And then to see RVD already in the WWE title picture, ooh, imagine.
It would have been good because it would have, it would have been better than the short title reign he had.
Yeah.
After beating Cena.
Yeah.
Which as a kid made me pretty damn sad. I was a big fan of RVD. and
Yeah.
I was laughing when they were throwing back John Cena's shirt. The ECW. I think that
Yeah.
was it was just too good.
I thought the finish was really good, where they had Paul Heyman freaking count.
And then again, it was just like a feel good moment.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's see. Number 14. I'm gonna be honest. I kind of changed this a couple of times because there were so many matches and so many that I had a hard time like figuring which one do I want to include. Now, my number 14 was between John Cena and Roman Reigns and Moose versus Jay Lethal, but both of them have to fall back to number 14, and this was John Cena versus AJ Styles versus Dean Ambrose at No Mercy 2016 for the WWE Championship. This match was beauty. Like this is like how a triple threat match should be. You see all these elements, all the teamwork, everything. You know, it was just like the WrestleMania triple threat match. They had like a finisher combo where they had AJ Styles. They had AJ Styles tap out to I think a STF and a crossface from both John Cena and Dean Ambrose, and then they had to restart the match, and then chaos ensued, and then AJ Styles came out the winner, I believe, from that match. It was great. It was definitely great, you know, and I was just very happy with how that match went. John, you're number 14.
It is CM Punk versus Cena at SummerSlam or SummerSlam, I think. Oh no, not SummerSlam. Freaking, I forgot what it.
Was Triple H the special guest referee?
No, it was Money in the Bank.
Oh, okay.
Money in the Bank. And that one was like a super intense match. Just the lead up to it of him coming back and kind of like deciding who is like the real one, the real thing, and you know, and then I think CM Punk coming up on top was another feel good moment.
Mm-hmm.
Where and it was taken, you know, and it was against, it was like all pro CM Punk, the crowd, and just having, you know, and they put on a good match. You know, you kind of think that they really hate each other, which I think they might, but they did a damn good job of keeping it feel like real.
Yeah, that's true. That was honestly all their matches are really freaking good. Um, Alrighty, so we have our last and final picks. Before we get to number 15, John, do you have any honorable mentions that you want to add before we get to number 15?
Jinder Mahal versus Randy Orton. This is a segment, but the old day.
Oh God! Now you're just being goofy.
Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows versus Enzo and Cass.
Which one? There was only so many.
All 5,000 of them.
I remember that. And then the next week, it was no longer Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson versus Enzo and Cass. It was Enzo and Cass versus Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows. Oh my God. Yeah, that was something else.
I think a good honorable mention is the Usos versus freaking New Day in Hell in a Cell.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That was a brutal match.
Yeah, I considered that too.
With freaking Xavier Woods being handcuffed and being hit with a kendo stick.
That's true. That was a good one. Anything else?
Oh, and also the ladders match of 2016 or 17 for with the return of the Hardy Boys at
Oh,
WrestleMania.
yeah, that was a good one too.
It was a damn good ladder match and
Hmm.
another feel-good moment with the Hardy Boys returning and winning the damn championships at the same time.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
was just, it had me on my feet the whole time. And of course, Jeff Hardy likes to do his insane stunts. Having that freaking swanton. It's like he never freaking left. Now
Yeah.
he's gone.
All right. Anything else?
That's all.
All right, cool. So, all right, as I previously referenced, Randy Orton versus Christian on SmackDown. Now, the reason why I would add this, because I know I've literally ranted about this so many times, is because if you look back at the match, as disappointing as it was for Christian to lose, especially in the span of 2 goddamn days, it was still one hell of a match to literally see Christian and Randy Orton go back and forth and work with each other, and they just had so much chemistry. And the finish of it, don't even get me started on that finish. As surprising as it was a damn good finish that I'm gonna remember for years. The way Christian sold that RKO, and then the way Christian sold the disappointment after the match, I I still can't like. This is truly the art of pro wrestling, where you could just be made to feel over and over again, no matter how many times you watch it. And like, I remember still watching that, and I'm like, I can't watch this without getting pissed off. And I even put it up online on Instagram on my podcast Legend Killers page, and I wrote captioned, "Try to watch this without getting mad." And like, it can't be done. You watch that, I'm like, you're always gonna get worked as a wrestling fan when you watch that and you know the context behind it all. Um, the storytelling was beautiful. It led to a series of great matches. It led to so much appreciation for Christian as well as a worker. So that's definitely an honorable mention. Another honorable mention: Jay Lethal versus Moose at the WCPW World Cup. That was a hell of a fun match to watch between those two. Kota Ibushi versus Cedric Alexander, hell of a fun match as well. Storytelling was amazing. Seeing Cedric get all emotional for not being able to win. And then after the match, you see people like literally chanting, "Please sign Cedric," as Triple H is like nodding in approval from the crowd. It's amazing to think like just how much this man has not like. It's amazing to think just how much this man does not get reactions when you consider like that match right there. Another match, honorable mention: Trish Stratus versus Charlotte Flair at SummerSlam 2018. This was a great match as well. I'm never forgetting that match either. Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens, Battleground. Loved that match as well. John Cena versus Roman Reigns, great match. All right, now I can literally go through a list of matches, but I've probably spent about a good 5 minutes talking over honorable mentions. All right, so my number 15. This is Charlotte Flair versus Becky Lynch at SmackDown 2017. For me, this was the match that like this was a match that put Becky on the map as a serious main eventer. And not that she wasn't already well respected and she didn't have her women's championships at the time either. But when she won that SmackDown Women's Championship at Backlash back in 2016, that is also another honorable mention. She had all of this momentum riding for her, and then she got sick. And it was never really explained what that sickness was, but she had to go to the hospital. and she was gone for, I want to say, about a good 2 weeks, maybe even a month that she was gone. And in that time, Alexa Bliss was getting all of this momentum. And funny enough, that Alexa Bliss was gaining all of this momentum, that Becky Lynch had lost a lot of momentum. And then Becky Lynch wasn't really the same quite after that until this match popped up. And this is the match that kind of gave Becky Lynch her confidence back as a character, her momentum back as a character. You know, people were getting behind her. This was an exciting match. You know, the back and forth. I could list all of the spots. You know, I remember doing a podcast with John where I literally listed all of the spots talking about this match. They did a spot where they had each other's legs, and then at the count of three, they would both let each other's legs go. That was as funny as that spot was. Like it was an added element to their match. They had they had serious moments in there, and they just had a good back and forth. They had a good back and forth match that, you know, at the end they shook hands, and you know, it gave a lot of notice to Becky Lynch. You know, and I'm so happy as a fan of hers to see where she is now. And so, you know, I have to easily add this match as number 15. Because I can't in good conscience not include this match. So that is my number 15. And this was, for me, my feel-good moment. Because that WrestleMania 32 match, you know, as disappointed as I was, and as good of a match as it was, it still left a bad taste in my mouth. But this match was a 5-star for me. Back to you, John. Number 15. What's your final pick, sir?
It's funny. It's great minds think alike, but it's not. It's Becky Lynch versus Charlotte at the all women's pay-per-view Evolution.
Oh, okay. That was a good
I
one.
think I think that one should have been the main event. Ronda
Mm-hmm.
versus Nikki Bella.
I still don't
That one
understand that. Why they
definitely
did that.
deserved it. It was the match of the night, and it was two women. It was a fall. It was like um, no, it was last woman standing match,
Mm-hmm.
and they went crazy on each other, both of them,
Mm-hmm.
throwing each other through tables with freaking literally Becky Lynch throwing everything on Charlotte to keep her down, and she still got up. And the power bomb at the end of power bombing Charlotte into a bunch of tables, and for Becky to come out winning, and retaining the championship, felt so deserving for her.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, it was a kickstart. It was a kickstart to the little thing now, or the thing she has now, and it was definitely worth the pay-per-view or
Mm-hmm.
the watch, because getting to that match, everything else was really good, but that was the peak. It was the peak where I even felt uninterested for the next match. I don't even think I really watched the next match
Yeah.
because I didn't care about that match. I cared about Becky Lynch versus Charlotte. I was interested to see what they were gonna do, and they did everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Honestly, that was easily match of the night, and I'll still never get like how you can have a match with such momentum, and like how a match is gonna be so good that you're gonna give them the backseat and put a match that quite frankly, nobody wanted to see in Ronda Rousey versus Nikki Bella. I
And it was a cold crowd. They were done. They saw what they wanted to see, and that was Becky Lynch versus Charlotte.
mm-hmm.
They were done, and
Yeah.
they they saw the match of the night, and that's what they felt. And I forgot what Stone Cold calls it something like where the match before just makes the other match so much, it doesn't the next match doesn't even feel like anything
I
because
don't
the
even.
match before was. I remember because he said it about him versus Kane after Mankind versus Undertaker, where his match was pretty much dead because they couldn't top they couldn't top that match. They couldn't,
Uh-huh.
and he knew that he wasn't gonna able to top it. And I just
I
think that it should have been main event.
Yeah, it should have. Honestly, it's funny because like AJ Styles and John Cena had that same reaction where at the SummerSlam one. Well, actually, at all three of them actually. Um, but I believe SummerSlam the most, where everyone was saying AJ Styles and John Cena should have been the last match of the night easily, because Dean Ambrose and Dolph Ziggler had to follow up their match, and the crowd was cold for that. You know. Um, but yeah, like that was just a beauty of a match. Good pick, John. Um, all right, so that'll conclude our top 15s. Um, well, I definitely enjoyed them. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into part two of this podcast. We'll talk about uh, let me see, John Morrison's return. Let's go ahead and discuss that. Um, so he had a banger of a match with Kofi Kingston, and then but he also had a talk show segment. How do you feel about his return, John? How do you feel about how his return went?
Um, I I haven't seen much of it, but I guess a lot of people are seeing it as underwhelming
Mm-hmm.
because one, they like announced it,
Mm-hmm.
and they kind of should have just left it on a simple return of,
Mm-hmm.
this, like a, where if he's gonna be heel, he just runs in at a certain time and like ends up ruining everything. I think it would have been a little bit better, but I'm excited to see him back. I ended up calling it.
Yeah. Good job, by the way. You get 2 points for that. And you know
I
what?
called the return.
Yeah, and you know what? Since we're talking about that fantasy draft, you win it because neither of us are keeping up with wrestling quite like we used to. Um, but yeah, I can see why people would think that this return was underwhelming. Just because when I saw the return, like, for one, the crowd had no reaction. And I was just
Hmm.
like, how? There are vignettes for this guy. The internet has been clamoring for this guy. Was the entire audience, born after the year 2009? I don't get it. Like, how did, like, not one person get up and cheer for John Morrison? You can hear his entire theme song throughout his entrance. And then on top of that, you factor in the fact that this man is returning as a heel. John Morrison should not be a heel, in my opinion. John Morrison is a babyface, clear cut, through and through. That's just how you book him. You don't turn Sammy heel, even though he does work as a heel, I'm not going to lie. But he's a better babyface. You don't turn Mick Foley heel, even though he's also a good heel. But he's a better babyface. You don't turn Rey
You don't
Mysterio.
turn Shawn Michaels heel, but he's a good heel.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm giving all this credit. But the thing about that is, the reason why I say that is because it's hard to be a babyface these days. Just look at Seth Rollins. It's hard to be a babyface. And when you have a guy that works and gravitates, you know, why would you then have a man return as a heel, no less, who should be the likable babyface? And I don't mind that they paired him up with the Miz. I think that could have been seen from a mile away.
You gonna wear fedoras again?
I probably, and they're probably even gonna start rapping too, make an awful rap music video. Um, Maybe John Morrison will wear his cheesy jackets. I don't know, but his first week back, and I'm excluding that segment where he comes out of the Miz's locker room. That one doesn't even count in my book. As far as I'm concerned, that's a cameo, not a return. Um, Look, John Morrison, I think you should have had this guy come back and maybe not pair him with The Miz, even though that's what you're going to do. I think you shouldn't have paired him with The Miz and just have him be a solo guy. I don't know why WWE likes to go for nostalgia and run through the well, but if you really look back and remember, John Morrison, on his last match in WWE, he lost to The Miz. They ended off on bad terms, so it doesn't really make sense for them to be friends again. Unless there was something, addressed there. But there was nothing addressed. So I don't know. I don't know. I just don't think it's... I just think that it's not working. He's kind of the opposite of Bobby Lashley in that sense, where like Bobby Lashley, he comes back, he's a babyface, but he's not working. And then John Morrison comes back as a heel, but he's not working. And well, just give it a little bit of time. I probably shouldn't judge it. It's only been 2 weeks. Alrighty. Well, that's my piece on it. John, what'd you think?
Yeah, only time can tell right now. But I hope it goes well. I really hope it does. I think he's a good wrestler, and let's hope that it all works out at the end.
I hope he gets a run for the Universal title. I hope he. The man is a hell of a worker. He deserves that, I think. All right, so let's go on with CM Punk. He had heat with the Miz recently. What? John, did you hear about this by chance?
I have not. I didn't even know that was happening.
So basically, on Twitter, Miz recorded a video of himself, saying, basically mocking CM Punk's line about just when you think you got the answers, I changed the culture. That whole deal, but Miz obviously was playing around. But CM Punk had quite the reaction to this. To say that he didn't take kindly to this would be an understatement, because the way he reacted, and he targeted the Miz for this and said, and I quote, "Go suck a blood money covered dick from Saudi Arabia, you effing dork." John, you and I have both known Christian for years, and this will be the only time that you and I will, or you or I, will ever compare CM Punk to Christian. Now, we're not talking about WWE Christian, folks. We're talking about our friend Christian. This was the overreaction of overreactions. Because the only person I could ever think about reacting like this would be Christian, John. Would you agree?
I don't even know at that point. Even that might be too much. It's just, if he's doing that,
Too much.
CM Punk has always kind of been like a man of tantrums, to be honest. He hasn't always had the best, what do you call it?
Temper.
Temper. He's very mad all the time. And he just needs to stop. I thought he would stop by now. He's getting a little too old for it now. He was a
Yeah.
little too old for it then, and he's still too. He's even older to do it now.
Hmm.
He needs to chill out.
Yeah. And what's kind of disappointing the most about this is that this is a man who literally, like, before he returned to Fox, he went on an interview and said that, I've been over what happened to me back in WWE for quite some time. I've moved on. I've had a lot of things happen since then. He says that, and I remember reading that. I was like, man, CM Punk has really matured, and he's had a lot of things going for him. I'm happy for him. But to see him now just kind of like negate all of what he just said, and then just go at the Miz over like a pipe shot. And this was no work, ladies and gentlemen. The CM Punk and The Miz are not gonna have a feud in the year 2020 because there's no story to be made off of it. For one, CM Punk and The Miz, there's no story unless I guess you want to go with, oh, I should have had that WrestleMania shot back in WrestleMania 27. Unless you want to go with that, but then by that point you should have it be Triple H and CM Punk because it would make better sense. So that's why I highly doubt that this had anything to do with some sort of storyline or anything like that. I think CM Punk was just being ridiculous. He was just overreacting. CM Punk quickly deleted those tweets, but everyone saw him. I think part of it was because he realized just how ridiculous he was reacting, you know. And it makes me wonder for his next appearance on WWE Backstage. It makes me wonder if he's gonna even address what he said. It makes me wonder if he's gonna apologize, which I think he should. I think CM Punk absolutely should go on TV and apologize because that was an overreaction. It was an overreaction. Anyway, that was kind of my whole piece on that. Any last thoughts on that, John?
Nah, man, back to you.
All right. So the next thing I want to talk about here, Matt Hardy. He's had quite an interesting couple of months. His tag partner, Jeff Hardy, has been nothing short of irresponsible. He's back at it again with the DUIs. And that has left Matt Hardy to kind of, be put in a nowhere position, which is something I've hated for a long time about WWE, that they always seem to not respect Matt Hardy, and they just always kind of give him the shaft and never do anything with him when he's by himself. And the closest thing to respect that they've given him was the whole Woken Matt Hardy stuff, which I don't know why you wouldn't bring that back. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And if it worked once, try it again. But Matt Hardy it is known that Matt Hardy's contract is expiring soon. John, do you know anything about what is going on with Matt Hardy on Twitter lately and what he's been saying?
I know, like, he's been pretty weird about it. We're, like, saying some random stuff, and is he teasing leaving?
Yes, he's been kind of like not saying that he's leaving, but like kind of saying it without saying it. Just, that whole thing. He's been doing a lot of that, and then on top of that, recently we just saw him what's it called? Make a reach out a tweet to about Bray Wyatt, and he said something along the lines of, "Would this man hurt or heal me?" as a person. And not only that, he's been making videos about free the delete and trying to basically trying to bring back his Woken character in WWE, but he's been making videos of him on YouTube. So Matt Hardy's trying to get back into that character ideal. And Bray Wyatt responded on Twitter and said, "Dear Matt, I would never hurt you." Let me go ahead and pull up the whole tweet just so that you're kind of aware here. Bray Wyatt, Matt Hardy. Shoot. Okay, let me try Bray Wyatt, Dear Matt. Okay, well, I can't find it. But basically saying that I would never hurt you, and if you join me, I would help you a lot. Teasing the idea of a reunion between Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt. Now, what I'm wondering is, now this worked with the old Bray Wyatt character, but with the Fiend, it's kind of a different story. So I pose this question to you, John. Do you want to see the Fiend and Matt Hardy together? John?
Say that again?
Do you want to see the Fiend and Matt Hardy together in some type of program, be it a storyline or a singles reunion, a tag team reunion of sorts?
I have no idea. I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they could work together. Because, is Bray a heel?
Yeah, he's a heel.
And unless like he becomes evil or something, then maybe. But maybe they could just be like in cahoots once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that, like nothing long distant or like long lasting. Or kind of long lasting, but not like very often.
Mm-hmm.
Where they could use each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking that too. And I think that if they were gonna like reunite, I'm pretty sure this would most likely end in Bray Wyatt betraying Matt Hardy eventually. I think the one big takeaway from this would have to be that basically Basically, I would like to see a storyline where Matt Hardy gets a shot at the Universal title, but how likely is that going to happen? One thing to kind of note is that Matt Hardy has been silently moved to the SmackDown roster per WWE.com, so it could very well be a possibility. Alright, so next thing you know, John, have you heard of a woman named Tessa Blanchard?
No, I have not.
Did you know she was a racist?
Oh, that girl. That's who you're talking about. Okay.
Ah, yes.
Yeah,
I
I know who
actually
you're
thought you were
talking about
joking
now.
at first. Okay, well, yes. Tessa Blanchard.
What
So,
did she say?
alright. For those of you that didn't hear the story, this is the story. This is kind of a he say, she say type deal. But okay. So first thing that happened was Tessa Blanchard took to Twitter and said, "Hey women, let's start supporting each other. Cool things happen." And to which two women just kind of buried two women who I believe were Chelsea Green and Allison Kay. One woman was like, "How would you say that when you've been nothing but brutal to women and constantly treating them like dog shit and all this stuff?" Paraphrasing here because I don't remember the exact tweet. And then Allison K responded and said, um, Allison K responded and said that didn't you once spit on a black woman and call her the N word back in Japan? And then other people, and then what's it called? And then believe Chelsea Green said, yeah, I remember that. Now, you follow this story up with the fact that the person in question came out and said, yes, she did it, and her name, I don't remember her name, but she even said that she was the one who they were talking about. And then there was about 3 other people who chimed in and told their versions of the story. But Tessa Blanchard sticks to Twitter and says, I have never said such a thing. I have never done such a thing. So, John, what do you think of this whole stuff? What do you think of all this?
Oh, she's in a sticky situation, man.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's kind of her fault. Might as well own up to it, I guess.
Yeah. Do you
Or
think she
just
did
not
it?
say it at all.
I don't know.
Do you think she did it?
Honestly, all the evidence is there, but and if I'm being honest, the fact that she's even continually talking about it, not that it necessarily makes her guilty, but it's not a good look on her because she's just kind of like this child, like won't stop talking about it, won't stop talking about it, won't stop talking about it.
It makes you think that she did it.
Yeah, exactly. So I do think to some degree that she did it. Because I don't know why a whole bunch of people would just tell this big ass lie about one woman.
But then to like keep talking about it, then you see when they keep talking about it means usually they did it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that Tessa Blanchard needs to just shut the hell up or own up to her situation. But if I were Tessa Blanchard, I would just not respond at all. Because if people are really spreading lies about you, then there is no point in, there's no point in responding to that. Like, you don't get anything out of it by entertaining these people. So yeah, if Tessa Blanchard is telling the truth and all these women are lying, then they're all assholes. But if Tessa Blanchard, actually did it, then she's the asshole. And she's a double asshole for lying about it. So yeah. Alright, so last thing I want to talk about here, John Cena is said to want to really do something special for WrestleMania. I remember I did hear that he took to Twitter and said a couple words, but I didn't really quite look at those tweets. I forgot about them. So, John, what do you think that John Cena will be doing at WrestleMania this year?
I have no clue.
Mm-hmm.
He might wrestle. That's how much I know. Lately he hasn't really been doing much though. And there's not much time to build up anything. Unless he comes back and starts to build up something. But even though he hasn't done anything in a while, he's made an appearance at WrestleMania. I don't doubt another appearance.
Mm-hmm.
He might make another appearance at WrestleMania. But I don't see him doing anything really, unless fighting Elias.
Mm-hmm.
Because 2 WrestleManias in a row, he's bugged the poor guy.
That's true. Well, I do have one theory as to what he's gonna do. And I think that, now hear me out. I think that this will make the most sense when you put into context everything. Everything I'm about to say here. I think that John Cena wants to have a WrestleMania match with Bray Wyatt. It has been. Now, here's why I feel that way. If you look at Bray's track record of feuds, a lot of them have been none other than old feuds dug up. If not all of them, by the way, they have been nothing more but old feuds from his past that he's come back to claim and win. He beat his first feud back. He faced Finn Balor. 3 years to the day. 3 years later, he beat Balor from and redeemed his win from his loss from Balor in 2017. Then you have Bray Wyatt. He feuded with Seth Rollins. I don't know if that was an old feud or anything like that. I'm gonna be quite honest, but it could be. It could be if I really go back and remember things. If I go back and remember things correctly, that is. But then you have Bray Wyatt versus Daniel Bryan. They feuded before. As you know, they had the Wyatt family stuff going for them, and Bray Wyatt even alluded to used to having a family. And now you're seeing Bray Wyatt. He's about to have a match with Daniel Bryan. It has been 4 years to the day that he had that match. Actually, 6 years to the day. Sorry, that he had that match with Daniel Bryan at the Royal Rumble. And just like that, it is about to be 6 years to the day that he has had that match with John Cena. So when you go back and look at who has been Bray's biggest defeat, who defeated Bray Wyatt the most and really tarnished his image, it was John Cena. That's who it all started with. And so when you put together the list of Bray Wyatt's feuds, where he's seemingly holding grudges and giving everyone theirs, and then you put together that John Cena wants to do something meaningful, well, I think the meaningful thing that John Cena can do is put over Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania in redemption for what Cena did to Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania 30. What do you think on that?
That's a damn good idea. But I don't know if that will happen.
No. So, if you had to venture a guess, what do you think John Cena would do?
I think just like a quick segment. That's all I think.
Could be. Well, that was my storyline booking. It's fun to do that. Well, all right. Well, that's gonna wrap it for this podcast. I don't got anything else. John, anything you want to talk about?
No.
No. Gotcha. Alrighty. Well, as a bonus match, this is one more. As a bonus match for the decade, so consider this number 16, the Shield Triple Threat on Battleground. That was a pretty good one. Alright. Now, one last thing actually, John. Match recommendation of the decade. What you got?
Of the decade? Oh my god, this is difficult.
Come on, you had a top 15 match list!
Okay, well, then see, Titus O'Neil versus, Jinder Mahal. I don't know.
Okay, Titus O'Neil versus Jinder
I
Mahal.
don't even know if that's a match.
I don't even know if that's a match. Fair
Uh,
enough.
Go freaking rewatch AJ Styles versus freaking Brock Lesnar right now. Go see it
Yeah,
right now.
that's a
Right
good one.
now.
Yes, yes. Okay, my match recommendation of the decade: Charlotte Flair versus Becky Lynch. Since I spent so much time talking about that, go ahead and watch that. Alrighty, John. I'll see you in a bit. I gotta go now because Kylan wants to use the podcast, wants to use the
Podcast.
PlayStation. So, alright, man. Have a good day, okay?
Yeah, you too. Or good night, man. It's nighttime.
You have a good night, too, man!